Okay, let's try it again. Hey y'all, Michelle here with Chaos Laser Life, and today we're going to be walking through exactly how you can make your very own pet ornaments for this holiday season. Let's talk a little bit about some of the supplies that we're going to need for this particular project. So we're going to need some twine or some ribbon, whatever you're going to end up hanging your ornament with. We're also going to need these little jump hooks. Now for the jump hooks, we're going to want the larger ones. The jump hooks that end up being about 3/8 of an inch across, okay? And so you're going to want the biggest ones that come in this particular one. Now we've used some of these other ones for earrings and things like that. I love to be able to utilize the same supplies, meaning I buy one big batch of this and I can use it on a whole bunch of different projects. So that's why we're going to be using the largest size of jump rings from this particular little bundle that I purchased. And then you're going to want some sort of flattener or scraper. This is for masking your wood. You're also going to want some masking if your wood is not pre-masked. I'm also using these needle nose pliers for these jump hooks. I also have a little bead. It's just a little decorative bead. This is totally optional. I'm keeping mine this neutral color, but you could paint them, have some fun and get creative on what you want yours to end up looking like. I also need a pair of scissors. That's always super handy. I'm also going to be staining my wood. So I'm using a dark stain, but again, you can use any color stain that you want. Paper towels, I always have those on hand. And then the actual wood that I'm going to be using for this project is birch. And so it's unfinished birch. It's at, let's see, 1/8 of an inch in thickness, 1/8 of an inch birch wood. And I think that's it. So let's go ahead and let's dive into our project. So here we are on our Glowforge app on the dashboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to click right here and we're going to click on upload. And when we upload, we're going to get this Pawprint SVG file. This design is a design that's available to all of our Club Chaos members. So we're going to click on that and we're going to click on open. Now, when we do that, we're going to get this message down here that says processing, and then it's going to pull up our actual bed of our machine. So if our machine is not on, up here it's going to say offline. My machine is turned on and it says it's ready to print. Now you can see that it's just black there, and it's black because I don't actually have my piece of wood yet put inside of my machine. There's a couple things I need to do first. So for this particular project, I'm going to be using a piece of an 1/8 inch thick birch unfinished wood. So what we're going to do here is we have our design, and you can see up here, this part that is blue is how wide it is. So if I just look at this one ornament, because these two are going to go together, I can see that my ornament is about 4 inches in width. I like that size. It's big enough where I can see it, but it's not like overtaking my tree. Totally up to you if you want to resize it. But what I want to show you is if you want to personalize it or you want to switch things up on your ornament, what you can do here inside of the Glowforge app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this entire ornament, I'm going to click and select it, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to say copy. And then I'm going to click on paste. So now you can see I've got a whole bunch of things going on here. And I'm just going to click and drag that copy right below the original one. This original one, we're going to cut as is, meaning I'm going to go ahead and just keep it saying 2022 on the Pawprint. For this bottom one, I want to show you a couple things that you could potentially do if you want to personalize this. So the first thing I need to do in order to switch it up a little bit is I need to ungroup it. So with it selected, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say ungroup. Now you can see each one of these numbers now is its own item. I don't want to mess up the spacing. So I'm going to click on the first one. I'm going to hold down shift and then I'm going to click on the 0, the 2, and the 2. And then I can let go of shift. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say group. Now all of these are one group and I can kind of move them around.
So what I'm actually going to do for this one is I'm going to take this 2022, I'm going to make it way, way smaller, and I'm going to put it up here on the heart. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually just delete it altogether. If it's not 2022 or my ornament is not for 2022, I can totally remove it altogether if I want to. So again, lots of options there on things that you can do. I'm going to go ahead, I don't want it to be too small, and so we're going to kind of move it around right like this, right kind of in the middle. Okay, and it's going to be pretty small there. If you want to be able to zoom in, you can hold down Control on your keyboard and hit the plus key, and then you can kind of hold down the space bar, click and drag, and that'll like zoom you in a little bit, so it's a little bit easier to adjust the sizing there for you. Okay, so now we've got our 2022 up here. Now, you could absolutely print it with no name here and keep it very, very generic, or maybe you want to write a message. So for this example, I'm going to write a message right here. So I'm going to click here on Insert Text. This is if you have the premium app. If you don't have the premium app, you can use a software like Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape to be able to add your message and then save it and then bring it into the software. For this, I'm going to just show you how you would do it if you're using the Glowforge Premium app. So we're going to type here our name. So when I clicked on that text, it brought this box up, and then it brings this box over here on the right. And I'm going to type in whatever I want my phrase to say at the top. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to click on that little arrow down and select a font that I like. And so you can pick any font you want. I'm going to keep mine kind of simple, kind of bold. And then you can change the weight of it. You can change the size of it, alignment. I'm going to keep all the rest of that stuff the same. And then what we're going to do is I'm actually going to adjust the size of it by just pulling on that bottom corner. And then I'm going to bring this down right to the middle of the Pawprint. Okay, and then you can kind of see that little green line pops up where it shows that it's centered with the rest of it. Okay, so now we've got two different styles of ornaments, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit Control, and then I'm going to hit on the minus key. I'm going to hold down space, it brings up the hand, click and drag, and just kind of bring me back to my base. So I've got two different styles of ornaments here, and you can pick whichever one you would like to do. Now, one more thing that I want to note, remember, you can move any of these little elements around that you want. So for our example, we're kind of doing a raised paw print, which is why I have these items engraved and scored on the paw print itself. But if you want to use this outline of the paw print, you would then place the name on this background paw print, and then could place this. I'll show you more when we get over to the desk what I'm talking about, but just so that you know, I wanted to mention this outline then would go on top of this one. For these are going to go on top of this, but I'll show you what I mean when over at the desk. But just know you can move these around, where if you wanted this to have 2022 over on the raised part, you could always move that over to this background and put this one on top of it as an outline. So lots and lots of flexibility here on exactly what you want your paw print to end up looking like. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to make sure that all of my settings over here on this side are actually set up the way that I want them to be set up. Meaning if I want it to cut, it's cutting. If I want it to score, it's scoring, etc., etc. So the first one is that word Trixie, and I want it to engrave. So that is set up just fine. And you can see as I scroll my mouse over each of these items, that element highlights here on your dashboard. So Trixie is set up the way that I want. For 2022, I actually don't want this to engrave. I just want it to score, meaning I just want it to cut a line there. I don't want it to actually engrave the item. For this outline, I want to go ahead and cut that. For this little line on the inside, I don't want to cut that line. I actually just want to score that line. It's a decorative line on the inside. So I'm going to hit score. And then the other two paw prints, I do want to go ahead and I want to cut. The last thing that I want to make sure is set up properly before I actually print is I want to make sure that my engraving and my scoring are happening before my cutting in the process. And so like this score, I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to move this up in the order. This is the order in which it takes place. So like this will happen first on your machine, Trixie. 2022 will happen next. The scoring of that line will happen third. The cutting of that outline will happen next. Then the paw prints, then these outside paw prints. And you can change those orders here on the side. But I want all my engraving and scoring to happen before any of the cutting happens. Okay, so at this point, our design is ready to go. It's the right size. We have all the right elements of what we want them to do. We've also selected over here, yours might say unknown if you don't have anything in the bed. You're going to click here on medium draft board. That is the settings that we're going to use to cut our 1/8 of an inch birch wood, which is what we're going to be using to produce these ornaments. So at this point, what we need to do is we actually need to go prepare our wood. So we're going to go mask our wood and make sure it's ready to go. Then we're going to place our wood into the bed of the Glowforge. Then I'll come back here and I'm going to hit print. So let's go ahead and do those next couple steps, and then I'll see you back here to send this to print.
We have our piece of birch wood, and what we need to do is we need to mask this. Now, the reason why we mask our wood is so that it doesn't get burned, so that we can peel the masking off and then the wood will still look nice and clean. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take this paper masking. It's kind of, if you're familiar with vinyl at all, it's what I use as my paper transfer tape. And I'm just going to stick it right across the top part here of my wood. Peel it off. And I'm just going to place it right across this top part. And I'm going to use this little scraper here to kind of flatten it out. Okay, and then I'm going to unroll it and flatten it as I go. And I'm going to unroll and flatten and unroll and flatten. And it can rip easily. That's okay. It's because it's that paper masking tape, so don't worry if it rips. So I'm just going to keep unrolling and then smoothing it down. Unrolling and smoothing it down. And then at the end, we'll do one big final smooth of everything. So I'm unrolling and then smoothing it down. And then when I get down here to the bottom, once I've unrolled it enough, I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim that bottom off. Now you can absolutely rip it, but because I just want a little bit of a cleaner finish, I'm just going to trim it off with my scissors. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to use my little scraper and I'm just going to flatten it out all the way down to the bottom. Now you want this to be adhered really well because again, this is what is protecting your wood from getting burned as the laser is cutting it. So you want it to be on there really, really well. And if you're doing a whole bunch of ornaments, you're gonna wanna do a second piece right here. We're just doing these two, so I'm only gonna need this space, but just know if you're gonna use this whole piece of wood at one time, you're gonna wanna mask this side as well. Now, if you're gonna be painting these and it doesn't really matter if the burn marks are there because you're gonna be painting, don't worry about masking. For us, we're gonna be staining the wood and we wanna keep it that natural finish, which is why we're gonna mask it because we need that natural look and we don't want it to be burned. But again, if you're painting, don't worry about this step. You can go ahead and skip it. Okay, now we can go ahead and we can place this in our machine and it's ready to cut. Okay, so we've got our wood completely masked. We're going to go ahead and open up the bed of our Glowforge and we're going to place our masked wood here into the bed of the Glowforge. We're also going to use these little honeycomb pins to just pin that piece of wood down so that it doesn't move. I'm just going to place one of those in there. It just helps it make it be a little bit more secure. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close the lid of this and then head back over to the app and click on print.
Now, as you can see here, there is now a piece of wood there that is masked, and my honeycomb pin is in there. And so I need to actually adjust where these ornaments are, because if I leave them in the same spot, there's actually no wood there for it to cut. So I'm going to select all of these ornaments and I'm just going to scoot them down a little bit. And so that way they are right there on that masked piece of wood. Now, if you're cutting a whole bunch of these, you might want to rearrange the way that they're fitting on your board and how they kind of all combine in. You can kind of twist and turn them around so that more and more of them will fit. You might also want to mask your entire piece of wood so that you can cut one huge thing all at one time. For the purposes of this example though, I'm just going to show you how to cut these two individual ones. Okay, so at this point, we are ready to go ahead and print our design. So up here in the corner, it's going to say ready print. Again, I've checked to make sure that these are all in the right order. I've checked to make sure which setting I'm going to be cutting this on, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to click on print, and then it's going to give me this message that says preparing your print. It's going to autofocus on your material, and then it's going to give you the amount of time it's going to take to actually produce your print. The other thing you want to make sure is you want to make sure if you are venting that your vent is out a window, or if you have the built-in air filter that the air filter is turned on. So you can see here, this is how long this is going to take me to cut. So it's really not too long of a print. It's also going to give you this message about the material not being found. That's because this is not a proof grade material that I got from Glowforge. This is actually a piece of unfinished birch wood that I purchased from an outside source. And so I'm using the medium draft board though. That setting works really, really well on the 1/8 of an inch unfinished birch wood that I'm going to be using. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and now head over to our actual Glowforge. Our blue light should be flashing. We're going to hit the blue light button and let our print happen. We can see that the air filter's on, our Glowforge is ready to print, and the blue light is flashing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to push this, and it's going to go ahead and cut out our ornament. Item is totally finished being printed, so we're going to go ahead and open up the lid, and here we can see both of our two ornaments. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull up the honeycomb pin, then I'm going to pull up my piece of wood, and yay, that means there was a very clean cut, nothing is stuck or left. And we're going to take our one Pawprint, and then our Trixie pieces. We'll keep these together. This is a piece that we don't need. That was just the outline piece. This one right here. So we're going to put that to the side. And then these are pieces that we might want for the ornament. So I'm going to put these all here together. So I'm putting them all, just kind of stacking them up here so you guys can see. Stacking them up right like this and placing them together so I can take all of this in the same order back together. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one, which this is the extra one that we don't need. And then I'm going to pull all these pieces back together. And then I'm going to close the lid of my machine, and we're going to take these two back and assemble them. And we can see here that our print is now done, so we can click on dismiss. Okay, so now that we have our two designs cut, it's time for us to go ahead and assemble them. So let's go ahead and set out each of our pieces.
And it's time for us to pick which elements we want to stain and which elements we want to keep as natural. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I need to peel this masking off. Now, you can absolutely grab a piece of duct tape and that will help you peel it off. For this, it's just, I can just peel it off in one simple cut. And so you can see, like, here's a difference. If this was not masked, this is actually what the wood itself would look like versus how clean and crisp it is this way. So we're gonna go ahead and just peel that masking off. Okay. And you can see this is the one where we decided to put 2022, and then this one we kept it as neutral. Then we're going to peel this backing off. Okay, so we're actually going to have it raised on there. Now, for this particular one, this cutout we're not going to use, okay? But another option, I want to show you another option of what you could do is if I use this background and I wanted to, let's say I had engraved this word Trixie right here on this background, I could actually take this part of my design and place it on top as the outline. Now, if you do that, you want to make sure that those two circles are exactly lined up. But see how you have this one is the raised paw print, and then this one you're using that outline of the paw print. Okay, now if you're going to do this again, that extra paw print, that's where you want to make sure that you engrave the name on. So for this example, we're using both of the standout pieces, and so that's why we're not going to be using these two. But I could always use these two for standalone ornaments, or I could cut a couple of these by themselves and use that as an ornament. So lots and lots of options here. It's almost like I don't want you to get paralyzed with how many options there are. So I'm showing you one way to do it. I encourage you, try it out this way. And then if you want to experiment and add a whole bunch of different ideas, you can do that as well. So again, for this purposes, we're going to take these two and we're just going to put these over to the side for now because we're not going to be putting those on this particular project. But just know that you can if you want to. So we've got our two ornaments set up. Now it's time for us to decide which part of the ornament do we want to stain and which part do we want to keep neutral. So for this particular ornament, I think I'm going to stain this background of the original paw print. Well, let's see. I think I'm going to stain, I think I'm going to stain that background. So we're going to stain this part of the ornament. So the way that we're going to do that is I'm just using this wood finish stain. I'm going to take a paper towel, scoop these up, put my print right there on it, open up my stain, take another paper towel, and it's going to be just really, really light here, like hardly anything. Dip a little tiny bit in there. Make sure you're doing this in a well-ventilated space because it does have a smell to it. We're just going to dip it on there. And if you want to wear gloves, you can absolutely do that as well so that the stain doesn't get on your fingers. And if you have a whole bunch of these to do, I would highly recommend you doing that. Okay, and then once we have that part stained, we're going to take a clean paper towel and wipe off any extra. So you can see, we're just going to wipe off that extra juice, that extra stain that's on there. So now it's all wiped off. So now we can get a better idea of what that's actually going to look like. And we can place this one right on top. And because of the fact that we masked our wood, it's clean and it's crisp and it looks nice. So see, It looks like it's got this nice, beautiful background. Now, for this particular one, we're gonna actually stain this outline and do it a little bit different here. And it's up to you if you wanna stain the back as well. They are gonna be seen from both sides, so you can absolutely stain both sides of the ornament. One more little paper towel. And again, if you're doing a whole bunch of these, you might want to set up more of an assembly lines type station where you're not just doing one at a time. Put the lid back on that. Put that back over here to the side. Soak up any extra off of the back of this one. Make sure you're doing this again in a very well ventilated area. And you can also paint these. If you're like, you know, Michelle, I really just don't want to do stain, you can paint. Remember, there's no wrong way to craft and do this stuff, so you can absolutely paint them if you want to. Okay, so don't feel limited to what I'm showing you here. And I'm gonna wipe this one down just a little so that you can really see that 2022. Wipe each of these. Now, from here, I'm gonna go ahead and let these guys dry for a little bit. And then once they're dry, we're gonna assemble the whole thing together. So I'll see you back here once they're totally dry and we'll assemble all of them. Okay, so here's a couple tips for you. If you end up scoring your words or your lettering, I don't want you to stain it a really, really dark color. As you can see here, we scored the 2022, and because we stained it really dark, it's very hard to see. On this one, though, we kept it that lighter color and we engraved it with a thicker font, and it's really easy to see whatever it is that it says. Okay, now that everything's dried, it's time for us to actually assemble our ornaments together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're going to glue on our little paw prints here to the background. And what you can also do is you can actually use this as your guide and then make sure that they fit in the right spots. Let me show you how to do that. So remember this little piece that we're not going to use, we can actually place that on here. That'll give you an idea of what that could look like too if you wanted to do that as an ornament in and of itself. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use this glue. We're just going to use a little bit of this wood glue and we're going to glue these on. Now, there is some wood you can use, like some adhesive on the back. I don't personally have that right now, so that's why I'm just using this glue. Again, I encourage you, use what you have to start with, and then as you grow, you can buy all those fancy bells and whistles. So for this wood glue, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just using this as my guide, and then I'm going to place this inside those little cutouts. So see how that fits really nicely in there? And then I'm going to do the same thing with each of these guys. Okay, so now we've got all of those in there and we can just easily remove that off. And now they're all in the exact position. So we're gonna put that over here to the side and let that dry while I assemble this one. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. out, and then all of your pieces are in the exact spot that they're supposed to be in. Now, once those have dried completely, it's then time for our next step. So I'm gonna let these dry and then we'll come back and we will assemble them together. Okay, so now that our items are dry, it's time for us to go ahead and get these jump hooks. We're gonna use these the largest ones here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna kind of push it side to side so it'll open. I wanna open it pretty big there so that it'll fit. And then we're going to add in our paw print. And then we're also going to add in this top piece. So I'm just going to take that little jump hook and I'm going to place it through that bottom hook there on that top piece. And then I want that to be in the back. So I want this opening closure, I want that to be in the back so that nobody can really see it, okay? Now, and again, for this back piece, you can see it, because we didn't mask the back of our wood, we can see a little bit of burn marks. If you don't want that on yours, you can absolutely mask the front and the back of your wood, or you can paint it. So a couple different options there on what you want your backing to look like. And then from here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our needle nose pliers, if I can grab mine together, and we're gonna close up this little hook. We're just gonna squeeze it together. Now, there might be a little tiny opening, so I'm gonna squeeze it from this side as well, so that way it closes it off. So now we've got our nice little jump hook there, and so it's kind of like a floating ornament. Okay, and then for the top piece, what we're gonna do, let me go ahead and put this one on this one, and then I'll show you how to do the top piece. Now, what I want to do for the top part is you have a couple different options here. I'm going to take this twine, okay, and this twine is what I'm actually going to be using to hang the ornament with. So I'm going to thread this through this little piece right up here at the top. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can thread it. You can use a needle, you can use a piece of tape. I'm just going to kind of shove mine through there and then pull it, and it'll end up pulling the whole piece through. We'll get it all the way through. There we go. And so now, I say that, let's get that whole piece all the way through. There we go. Okay, so we've got our piece all the way through, and then I can trim this part. It doesn't need to be nearly that long. I mean, it's totally up to you on how long you want to keep that string available, but it's also up to you if you would like to have a bead on the top or not. So for this particular one, I'm not going to add the bead because I feel like it's the same color, but you could stain your bead and then put a bead up here at the top. I'm going to put the bead on this one because I feel like it complements it really well. But if I had stained this, I could put that at the top as well. For this one, I'm just going to leave it as is, and we're going to tie a little knot right up here at the top. Of the ornament. And then we're going to cut off these extras. Kind of fray them a little so it looks kind of cute. And then we've got this super cute little ornament. And then on this one, we're going to put the beads. So I'm going to get my twine. I'm going to funnel it through here. Again, I'm going to cut off a little section of it. And then I'm going to take my bead, put my bead through the top, pull it all the way down. See how it kind of finishes it off at the top. Tie a knot right above the bead so the bead doesn't move. Okay, now depending on how big your bead is, you might need a second knot. Like this bead hole is pretty big, and so one knot is not going to keep it in place. So I'm going to actually do a second one right on top of it just to make the knot a little bit bigger. So we've got a nice little knot there. And so now we've got this super cute beaded ornament. And so you can do bead or no bead, either way, they turn out super cute. And then again, like we talked about earlier, you can actually do like this one. I did the cutout of it and I engraved on the back side. So lots and lots of different options. And then here's one where I actually stained the front and put the name on the front as well. So many different ways that you can make this idea come to life. I can't wait to see what your pet ornaments look like this holiday season, and I will see you back next time. Bye guys. Thanks y'all so much for hanging out with me today. I can't wait to see what you end up creating, and I'll see you guys back next time on Chaos Laser Life. Bye.